Hey, welcome guys to my channel. In this video today I'll be showing you 3 DIYs, 2 of which are dupes, one from Khols and one from Amazon, but they're very easy to make. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so for DIY number 1, I'll be doing the Khols inspiration. So what you'll be needing for this project is one of those decorated canvas from the Dollar Tree. You'll also need a dowel, a 1-inch dowel, or what I'm using here is a tubing, as well as some faux leather from the Dollar Tree and 2 small cubes, wooden cubes. So what I'm doing, I am going to measure the size of the canvas, lay that down, and just decide where I want to place the tube. I'll call it that, the tubing. I'll measure 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to cut that. I cut that off camera, and what I'm doing now, I'm just using the sanding block from the Dollar Tree to sand down the edges. So I'm placing down the cube. You are going to measure 1.5 inches on each side, and then I am going to take some hot glue and glue those in place, making sure that I am gluing right on the edge of the 1.5 inch mark, just so both blocks can be centered. So after I did that, I am taking the tube and I am going to eyeball it and just to measure, make sure that it's gonna be glued in the right place. But before I did that, I took some of early American stain and just apply just a little bit on the tubing to give it a rustic look. Now I'm placing hot glue on the tubing, and then I'm going to attach that to the blocks, the wooden blocks. I also applied a little more hot glue underneath so that it can be held in place securely. Now I'm measuring off just 2 pieces, maybe 5 inches, I believe that's what I did, 5 inches of the leather, and I am going to place that down. I could have left the edges straight, but I decided to just give it a pointed cut. So I took both pieces and I cut them. I then measured off a piece of twine. You're going to decide how long you want your wall art to hang, and measure off the twine, cut that, and then you are going to glue both ends on the inside, and then you bring the leather over it, and that's to cover and hide the end of the twine, and then you glue that down onto the wood. You can leave the edges square or you can trim that down if you want to. It's up to you. Hey you! Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video, okay? I still thought that they needed to be trimmed down a little bit more, so that is what I'm doing. I then took some gold thumbtack that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I am placing those right in the center of the faux leather, and I did that on both the front as well as the back, and I believe this is done. So now we're on to DIY number 2, and this is my inspiration piece. This is not a bad price. I definitely would purchase this at this price, but because I like to make stuff, I decided to take on the challenge. I placed a link in the description below for anyone who is interested in getting this. So what you're going to need for this project is a round board, as well as a 5/8 inch dowel and a 3/4 inch dowel from Walmart. I used my miter box and saw to cut them down, but you can use any saw that you have, and measure off 12 inches on the bigger piece and 5 inches on the smaller piece. And I then took the sanding block and sand down the edges. I'm now using the ruler just to help me find where the center of the board is, as well as my tape measure. So I measure off the 7 inches and then I fold it in the middle, and that's just to give me the reference point as to where I need to place the dowel. I made a circle with a pencil. You don't have to do that. You can just use just a small point to indicate where the dowel needs to go. I then used the early American wood stain, and I applied as much stain on all the pieces as I could. That's just to ensure that I was getting the same shade as the inspiration piece. After they were all dried, it's now time to put the pieces together. So I took the ruler and tried to find where I had marked the center, and then I took a 1-inch nail. Now you can use a drill for this. I didn't have mine powered up at the time, so I decided to just use a hammer. So I just nailed the nail in briefly, and then I took it off camera and completed the job. To round off the tip of the dowels, I cut wooden beads of the same size in half and glued one piece on the tips. I then used some spackle to fill the gaps, and this is what it looks like. Sanded them down and finished with some wood stain. This part is optional because the inspiration piece does not have blocks underneath, but I decided to add 4 blocks, 4 mini blocks, stained those 3 sides, and I then attached them to the bottom of this stand. I then wrapped a piece of twine around both pieces, and I was done. There you have it. So now we're on to DIY number 3, and this video was filmed on another day earlier on. I happened to remember that I had this footage and decided to edit this. So I'm doing a home sign, and I had this piece of wood that was left over from another project, and this home sign I got from the Dollar Tree. So I am going to stain both pieces. I made sure to put down a piece of tape to cover the area that I want to glue the home sign on, and I am staining both pieces, all of the wood. I gave it just enough stain to change the color somewhat. I am not going to stain as much the word home, because I'm going to be painting that white, but I just want to change the color a little bit. So after staining the home sign, I am now taping down the edges, because I am going to paint the home sign, and so as not to get any paint on the area that I just stained, I covered that. I gave 2 coats, making sure that I was covering all the areas in the cracks and the openings. Now this was another day, of course. This was fully dried, and now I'm removing the tape to glue the home sign down, I applied my wood glue as well as hot glue, and I am going to put that down. I left it to dry properly. I applied some Waverly water-based seal. Oops, got too much out. To seal the stain and to give it a finished look. And then after I did that, I am now going to decorate. I rotated this clip so you could see what I'm doing. So I took some of my leftover boxwood pick and just cut off a few of the branches, 3 on either side, glued those together, kind of glued the stem, and then I applied one piece on top of that, and then glued the stem again and applied the other piece, and I did that for both sides. I then took a piece of twine, made a small bow, and glue that in the center. I also had a half of a leftover bead, and I am placing that in the middle. I then flipped it over, measured the distance where I wanted to put these 2 tumbling blocks from the Dollar Tree. I applied wood glue as well as some hot glue and glue those on. And that completes this DIY. So there you have it, 3 budget-friendly DIYs that I know even you can recreate. Once again, thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so YouTube notifies you every time I upload. Thank you again for joining, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.